Hey everybody, Corn-Fed Lady here, and today I'm going to take you on a homestead garden tour because it's been quite a while since I brought you out here to the gardens. I believe the last time you saw anything out here was when I planted this potato bed, which you can see is already taken off. Now this vegetable garden is about 30 feet by 80 feet, just for reference for you guys at home. Now my husband and I have been pretty busy off camera for the last few weeks putting in all of this black woven cloth, and that's just to keep the weeds out of our garden and make it a little more user friendly so that when we're walking through here we don't have to fight all the weeds. Alright, so let me show you what we've got growing in here and what's maybe not working in here. The first thing I want to show you is our corn patch. Now we've chosen the peaches and cream sweet corn variety because that's always been our favorite. It's been a family favorite at least as far back to my grandpa that I know of. So we always choose peaches and cream, and we always plant our corn in a block like this rather than just a single or double row. You always want to plant it in a square or rectangular block so that when the wind blows through, it'll help give stability to the stalks so they don't break over. But as they get bigger and start to tassel on top, the wind will blow the pollen out of the tassels down into the silks on the corns to fertilize them. So you always want to plant your corn in a block. Okay, so the first row in here that we have as a single row is peppers. This little guy kind of got squashed. He's trying to make a comeback. This is a Sunbright pepper. And we have two more of those. That's a Sunbright, that's a Sunbright. And then these other three in this row are jalapenos. So we've got three of those going. And again, we have these footpaths in between just so we can easily walk up and down the rows. Now you will have to excuse, well, you have to excuse the turkeys and the rooster back there that are making a lot of noise. But please also excuse the mess here. We had some storms the last few days, and some of this black ground cloth was starting to get pulled up. We do have it pinned down with ground staples, garden staples. I believe they're 6 inches long. But the winds were so strong that it was still getting a hold from underneath and trying to rip this up. So we put a couple pallets, bricks, whatever on top, so excuse that mess. This is real life and I wanted to show it for what it is. All right, the next row here, we did have some pepper sprouts, and they were some really interesting, exciting varieties like ghost pepper, habaneros, but unfortunately they never grew. So my husband just bought these starts last night and put them in the ground and watered them in. So we'll see if this row of peppers takes off, but we do have this first row of peppers if it doesn't. Now this next row here has some tomato plants, and these are all hybrids that we found at farmer's market. So this one is called Sunny Boy. This one is called Queen of the Night. This one is called Delicious. This one is called Bodacious. And Bodacious is actually already getting some baby tomatoes. Hopefully you can see that. So there's already some baby tomatoes growing in there on, Bodacious. And then this one is called Mortgage Lifter. And the one on the end here is not doing so great. It's kind of tiny compared to the other ones, but it's hanging in there. It's making a comeback. It's called Celebration. And our second row of tomatoes is the heirloom varieties. So in here I have, well, we've got kind of like two panels between the T-posts here. On the first panel I have cherry tomatoes, which are a heritage breed. So you can save the seeds from these tomatoes and they'll grow new cherry tomato plants that are exactly the same. Now when you have your hybrids, you're not going to necessarily be able to save the seeds from those and grow the same plants again, because hybrid seeds are not always true to the parent. So the plant that you grow from those seeds may be a little bit different than the plant that you took them from. But these heirloom varieties always grow true to their seeds, and they've been around for centuries. And right next to our cherry tomatoes, we have some Romas. The Romas are really good for saucing. So if you want to make spaghetti sauce or just tomato sauce, I like to make chili with it. The Romas are just a really good heirloom variety. Again, you can save the seeds from the Roma and the large red cherry tomatoes, but those other varieties that are hybrids, you don't want to save the seeds from. So make sure when you're planting your garden, you know if it's a heirloom or a hybrid, especially if you're going to save seeds. Okay, the next row after the tomatoes is our cucumbers, and we have two different varieties in here. Again, one on each panel. The first variety is the Market Moore 76, and the second variety is the Chicago Pickling. I think I've got 4 or 5 of each. They do have a little yellowing of the leaves. I think they got a little sunburnt. We've had a lot of weird weather patterns where it rains for 4 or 5 days straight, and then it's sunny and hot for 4 or 5 days straight, and the plants just don't know what to think. Now, we have been intermittently watering when it's not raining to try to keep this garden going. And these are the same 2 varieties that we used last year for pickling. Okay, just a little side note here. Things again in real life that help out. We have a compost pile right here on the side of the garden, which makes it really nice for a few different reasons. One, we have a place to grab fertilizer for our garden that's nearby. 2, when I'm weeding out these rows in between the plants, I can just toss those weeds right into the compost pile. And 3, when we're done with this garden area and we go to pull up this black cloth to prime it for next year, we can take this pile of compost right next to it and just dump it right over the top, and that'll help reconstitute this soil for the following year. And we do also have some water barrels back here that we're planning on eventually one day maybe getting a rain collection system going to be able to water the garden with, so that we don't have to run our hose all the way around the barn and up to the spigot there, which is how we have it now. All right, the next row after our cucumbers are the beans. And let's see, we've got a few different varieties. I wrote them down for you here. Okay, so that's Blue Lake, Contender, and Provider. I don't have a lot of experience growing beans. I just grew some last year for the first time, and I thought we had to trellis them, but apparently that's just pole beans, and I think these are all bush beans and they don't need trellised, so we don't have any trellising for the rest of the garden here on out. We just have them for the cucumbers and for the tomatoes. Okay, next up after our beans is kale. Now, I need you guys' help on this one. I ordered blue curled Scotch kale, which I have grown for the last 3 or 4 years, and I really like it. This is not blue curled Scotch. Does anybody know what this variety of kale is? If so, please leave a comment below. I'm also maybe going to try a Google photo lens search, whatever that's called, to see if it can kind of look it up on the internet for me by the picture and see what it is. But it has like a purplish, bright reddish kind of color. The back of the leaf is almost green. It's kind of a red fuchsia stem. I don't know if you can see that real well. But these are definitely not blue curled Scotch. So if you do know what they are, please comment below and let me know. Okay, the next 2 rows after that looks like a chia pet, those are the carrot rows. And these ones are supposed to be Scarlet Nantes, which again is a variety I've grown for the last few years that we really enjoy. They come out to be kind of a reddish orange color, and they're also very sweet. They grow pretty big. I do seed them very tightly. I know a lot of people are going to freak out about that. It looks like a chia pet. But what I've found is the ones on the edges will grow really, really large, and the ones that are kind of crowded in the middle will stay smaller. And although traditionally you would say maybe you want the larger carrot, they're really good fresh. I like the big ones fresh, but the little ones that are really skinny actually freeze dry better than the thicker ones. And I like to freeze dry carrots so that they can last us throughout the year. So having a bunch of skinny ones for us is actually not a problem. And we just eat the big ones fresh. All right, these last few rows are the ones that still need the most attention. And by attention, I mean weeding, and we need to see something growing in here. This row right here is supposed to be fennel and dill. And I do believe there's some fennel growing. Let me get on the other side so you have the sunlight working in your favor. So this right here is our fennel. And there's some more here. There's some more here. And then on the other end is the dill. And the dill is a little bit brighter green, still pretty ferny looking. And again, we have more dill, more dill, more dill. Now the dill we like to use for when we're pickling our cucumbers. And the fennel I like to use when I'm seasoning our homegrown sausage. We got pigs over there right now. They'll be in the next video. And this seemingly last row right here is supposed to be some scallions and onions. And I can see some traces of those starting to come in between all the weeds. Again, this row probably needs weeding the most. But I like to wait for the sprouts to come in a little bit bigger before I start heavily weeding so that I don't accidentally weed any sprouts. And this last spot on the end here is actually kind of a makeshift row. It does not have an edge on this side because this is where we're growing our watermelons. So the watermelons will be able to vine and spread out in plenty of space all across pasture here. So I've got my two favorite varieties here, which are Crimson Sweet. By far, this is my favorite. Grows really big, oval shaped watermelons that are super, super sweet, super juicy. And the fun thing about these Crimson Sweets, since they get so big, they're around for so long that we actually ended up naming one of them last year. It was Fred, because we watched the watermelon growing in the garden for a month or so. And then it sat in our fridge getting a little bit cut off of it every couple days for like a few weeks. So at some point we decided that if it was going to be around for a couple months, we may as well name it. Now these other little ones down here on the end, they're not quite as big as the crimsons. These are called sugar babies. And the nice thing about these is that they grow really small and really fast. So you'll get a bunch of really small round watermelons in a very short amount of time. And those small ones make nice for, say, if you're having just a little gathering with a couple of people and you just want a watermelon for that, but you don't want to have this giant Fred watermelon in your fridge for a month. These small ones you can just eat and appreciate all at once, throw the rinds out, and you're done. Now, of course, if you have a compost pile, the rinds go in there. And if you have pigs, the rinds go in there. Okay, I already gave you a glimpse of the potato bed. There is one more plant that we have put into the ground back here, and that is sunflowers. And I wanted to show you those. Now, we haven't even mentioned this. My husband and I wanted to get more of a sun and windbreak for our turkeys. So we've planted from this little pink flag all the way on down the fence line here, sunflowers. Now these are the same sunflowers that we had last year if you were watching our channel then, and I believe they were called striped mammoth sunflowers. They're a giant variety. They'll actually get probably up to the top of this tunnel that we've built for the turkeys. So last year they were probably 8 to 10 feet tall. We have a very solid line of them going all the way down the turkey run. And Tommy Boy wants to say hi. Hey, Tom. What you doing? That's good, girls. I know I get sidetracked a little out here, but that's the farm life. That's just living in the country, doing stuff like we're doing. Now, the next thing I did want to show you that I had planned was the barrier, or our berry area. Now, we've done the same treatment to the barrier that we did to our vegetable garden with the woven black ground cloth. So let's go up there and take a look at that. Come on. Let's go, boy, Tom Tom. All right, here we are all the way at the opposite corner of our property. And this is our barrier. Now, as you can see, we've put down this black woven cloth again in the rows in between where we've planted. And this is to contrast the problem that we've been having with weeds, as you can see in this old photo from before we put it down. So let's go ahead and take a look through here at what we've got going on in the barrier. Now, these first two bundles, which look like hedgerows, are actually raspberries, and they have already flowered. They are starting to fruit. If you look real closely, you can see where the flowers are starting to turn to fruit. And if you listen real closely, you might hear the bees buzzing in there too. So we've got our two bundles of raspberries. They're both the same variety. I'll have to look up that variety and put it on the bottom of the screen here. Now, this next little spot in the middle here is mostly black ground cloth. And the reason for this is we've been fighting weeds, as I'll show you in this old photo, in our cranberry bed. So in here, we have two cranberry plants. And as you could see from the old photo, they were getting pretty choked out by weeds. So we put this ground cloth down in here and we cut some holes for these cranberries to grow through, but the rest of the weeds and whatnot should be covered, just like in the footpaths. Now, this empty spot over here was our strawberry bed, but it got so overrun by weeds that it just was no longer even growing strawberries. So we've got it covered up for now. We plan on cutting some holes in it, somewhat like we've done over here, and dropping in some new berry plants. Maybe strawberries, maybe something else. And on the end of these two rows, we have two blocks of blackberry bushes. And these blackberries are in about the same phase. They're flowering. They're also fruiting. And these blackberries actually get pretty big. I've seen some of them as big as my thumb. So I have to show you when it comes time for harvest of these blackberries. Down here on the end, growing up this trellis fencing, are a couple of grapevines. This is the first year that they're actually starting to try to produce grapes. These are fairly new here on our homestead. I think they've been here a year or two. But you can see they're just covered in them. There's bundles everywhere. And there's a second one right here. And this one's actually producing even more grapes than the other one. Well, it's trying to. We'll see if they actually mature. But they're just everywhere. I don't know if you guys are catching that on camera, but there are grapes everywhere in here. All right. There is supposed to be an asparagus patch in here. I've only seen one spear so far this year, and I don't see it now. Not sure what happened to the asparagus patch. This is its third year, so you'd think it would be going crazy, but it's obviously not. So I may have to reseed that and wait another 3 or 4 years. Because asparagus, you're not supposed to cut it for the first couple years so that it can establish the crown underground, and then you can start taking cuttings off it. Well, last year, this actually grew really well. It had a big ferny bush on top. I left it there all winter, cut it down to the ground at the end of spring as it was warming up, And that's supposed to make room for the new sprouts to come through and encourage them with the sunlight and rain and whatnot. But there's nothing. There was one little teeny tiny skinny sprout, and that was it the whole time. So if you have any advice on growing asparagus from seeds, I would love to hear that in the comments below too. All right, in this bed here, we'll see some blueberries. And this bed actually does need weeding out pretty bad. This is just weeds. But this here is the blueberry plant. And you can see it has quite a bit of fruit on it. These bundles are really nice and thick this year. Let's see if I can get that in the sunlight for you. Now you'll see them start with a greenish color. Now blueberries, when they start growing, they're green. And then as the sun hits them, they turn a darker purple. But you want to wait until they're really like blue, like a bluish hue, before you pick them. So these are not quite ready yet. They're still a little bit green underneath. That's the easy way to tell. Now, of course, with blueberries, you need more than one variety for them to cross-pollinate. So we have 2 different varieties in here, 2 of each, and they're alternating. And in this last bed here, we have some currants. Now, I thought I had ordered 2 white and 2 red, but last year I just got white, so I'm not sure what's going on with that. They might have just gave us the wrong varieties. But in here you can see the currants are already growing. Now, some of them are green, and some of them are already starting to turn this yellowish color, which is actually what the white ones look like when they're ripe. So I've been picking some of these like every other day and putting them in a bowl in the fridge. Now, if you never had currants before, I can't really describe the flavor, but they do have a tartness to them, somewhat like cranberries. And they're really good fresh. Thanks for visiting today. Y'all have a good one. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button and click subscribe if you're not yet subscribed. Thanks. Bye.